And welcome once again to yet another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. It is Wednesday, and I'm so excited to be here. We have got a lot to get into here in the show, including a recap of NFL free agency. We have got our last bracketology as we've got conference tournament play going on this week, as Selection Sunday is this Sunday. I will also preview the high school basketball championships for the state of Georgia as it's all going down at the Macon Coliseum. I will preview all the classifications. Going to talk about that upset win by Italy over the United States in the World Baseball Classic. And now the United States sits back and watches Italy take on Mexico, hoping that the United States can get out of the group. And then we've got spring training. The Cleanstones are just less than a month away. Columbus State men and women's team are in the NCAA tournament. Even my alma mater ended up winning their conference tournament as they get ready for the NAIA tournament. And it's just going to be a jam-packed show. But before we get anything started, today's a very special day because it is March 11th, which is the 6-year anniversary of the day that sports stopped. I'll never forget where I was. I was actually doing military training, and I've got the notification that went across my phone that the NBA has canceled the season. Well, or suspended, however you want to put it. And it sent shockwaves around the sports world. So the story was the coronavirus was around since January. People heard about it. There were maybe a couple of 20 cases, maybe even in this country. But people weren't really taking it seriously. And when Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus, there was some worries that you could get this airborne, and they were kind of doing the tracing back. This ref was reffing in this game, and so they were actually contemplating maybe playing these games without fans. But one thing led to another. When they canceled the NBA season and March Madness got canceled, Major League Baseball got canceled, the NHL got canceled, the whole world just shut down, and we didn't get sports back until July when the NBA decided to come back in the bubble, which I still, to this day, I don't understand how that was even a possibility, and the Lakers winning a championship in the bubble is still tainted to this day. But it was a big moment in my broadcasting career. Many of you know in early 2020, I'd auditioned on 95.7 to be a sports talk show host, and they were supposed to make a decision the weekend of March. Even this is before March 11th, so they were supposed to make a decision that week, that first week of March. I was doing my podcast. My podcast was growing. I had my podcast for a couple of months, and then the day that the sports stopped on March 11th, they never came up with a decision on who was going to be the radio host. And so I personally felt like I never got closure. Long story short, I actually was still doing my podcast because I was motivated to continue talking sports talk radio. I was doing my podcast in 2021 when I started launching my broadcasting career with Russell County, calling games for the Columbus Rapids, and then Ryan O'Neill discovered me, the station manager at WQEE, and I was on that radio station from November 2022, actually from January 2022 to November 2024, and so it was a great podcast. It was an hour-long show. I had guests, and so it was good times. And, I've done a lot of great things since then. I've been helping, calling games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, been doing Georgia Alabama Sports Live shows with Rip Barringer, on Sports Visions with Rip Barringer and DJ Jones, every morning, Monday through Friday. Usually I'm in there in that first hour. Sometimes I stay the whole 3 hours, but I try to just help as much as I can. I put in the work because I am dedicated to doing sports broadcasting, whether it's calling games, producing, color commentating, just talking sports on the air, or even interviewing guests. But what I don't appreciate, and it's kind of a slap in the face, is when somebody can disappear for years at a time and all of a sudden come back on the broadcasting scene and try to do what we do. It's impossible. This is a grind. You've got to put in the work. You can't just all of a sudden not put in the work and then disappear for a couple of years and then come back and try to do it. That's not how this industry works. You've got to build notoriety. You've got to build networking. People have got to know you. And I have worked very hard through Georgia Alabama Sports Live and Sports Visions to get to where I am, to see somebody that, look, I'm not stopping anybody from like doing their own podcast. If they want to do their own podcast and talk about sports, by all means, go ahead and do it. But you also got to put in the work, and you got to get notoriety, and you got to be credible. Being on 95.7 and being on Sports Visions gave me that credibility that has led me to do this show, which I still do periodically because I still want to keep this going. I don't want it to die off, but once I got to my 1,000th episode, I could have easily said, yeah, we could just kill this show. I mean, I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish. No, I try to do this once a week. Sometimes I do it on Mondays. Sometimes I do it on Wednesdays. But I try to do this once a week because I still want to keep that continuity of this show. And I like talking sports. I like talking national stuff and, talking a little bit about the local stuff. So here's what we're going to do. With all that being said, I'm going to dive right into the show. Make sure you like me on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure that you're downloading that podcast. I'm found on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go ahead and dive into the show. This is going to be a very big week for high school basketball in the state of Georgia. DJ and Thrift had Matt Stewart on the Sports Visions morning show earlier this morning. He's going to be on the call for GPB Sports for the boys game. I appreciate Matt Stewart so much. He has been gracious to me. He's been a guest on my podcast several times. And when you love sports as much as Matt Stewart does, any opportunity he gets to talk sports, he is going to take it. So I appreciate Matt Stewart for that. All right, so the basketball championships, they start today. Yeah, hard to believe. Macon Coliseum, that's where it's going to be at. I'm going to break down all the games. We're starting at 1 o'clock. We have got private girls, Holy Innocents Episcopal and Hebron Christian. My word, what a massive game between two private powerhouses. And then we got the class private boys, Holy Innocents Episcopal taking on Darlington out of Rome. So you got Atlanta-Rome connection there. And then they have the three-point shootout for the boys. And then we've got the 3A girls. Heritage Catoosa taking on Sandy Creek. It's not the Sandy Creek boys. It's the Sandy Creek girls that made it to the state championship. That is a huge accomplishment. And then the 3A boys, we got Cross Creek taking on Harlem. Remember, Harlem upset Sandy Creek in one of the biggest upsets I've ever witnessed. And then they ended up beating Troup County on the road. And so Harlem taking on Cross Creek. Remember, Cross Creek was that team that Columbus played in the playoffs a couple of years ago. All right, tomorrow, starting with the Class 1A Division II. These were the matchups that I had the privilege of seeing at Fort Valley State on Friday as myself, Thrip Berger, Braden Holder. We collaborated with Middle Georgia Sports Live, and we were on the call for the NFHS network. They're getting to see a Class 1A Division II Wilcox County girls as they are going to be taking on, as I'm looking, oh my goodness, good night. Wilcox County girls taking on Washington Wilkes. Man, I was actually looking at their Facebook page. Yeah, Washington Wilkes and Wilcox County. How about that? How about that matchup? I was actually on the call for Metter Washington Wilkes girls on the NFHS network. And then I also saw Wilcox County girls ended up beating Bowden. So that's going to be a great matchup between Wilcox County and Washington Wilkes. I think Wilcox County is going to have a little bit of a home court advantage being just down the road from Macon. All right, the Class 1A Division II boys, Portal, which is just outside in Bullock County near the South Carolina border, going up I-95, taking on Clinch County. Now, we saw Clinch County beat Chatco. Clinch County, according to Max Preps, was one of the top teams in Class 1A Division II, along with Chatco. This is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I actually was Thrift's color guy for Clinch County and Chaco. I actually was on the call for Portal Washington Wilkes on the NFHS network. So these games do have some meaning to me. I'm interested to see who ends up winning here. We got the girls 3-point contest next. And then at 4A, we've got Marist taking on Kell. Marist has got one of the top female basketball players in the state of Georgia, Kate Harpring, the daughter of former Georgia Tech player Matt Harpring. And that's going to be an incredible game. And then the Class 4A boys, St. Pius X taking on Pace Academy. Friday, we have got the Class 1A Division I girls, East Lawrence taking on Elbert County. And then we got the Class 1A Division I boys, Rabun County taking on Southwest of Macon. I heard last year that they were turning away tickets. People bought tickets to the Macon Coliseum, and they were getting turned away. That's how big the fact that Southwest is back in the state championship is. They're trying to win a state championship. That would be awesome. The co-ed 3-point contest is next. And then we've got the 5A girls, Creekview, taking on Milton. And then we've got the 5A boys, Alexander, taking on Woodward Academy. And then finally, Saturday, that's where Thrift and I will be at the Macon Coliseum, as we are going to be there bright and early, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's the 2A girls state championship. Murray County taking on Hardaway. This is the rematch of the state championship last season. Hardaway is the defending 2A state champions. They have also been to 4 straight Final Fours, 3 straight championship appearances in 2 different classifications. And the Hardaway Lady Hawks trying to go back-to-back. Remember, they lost 6 seniors from last year's team. 4 starters from that team last year went on to graduate. And they got a young team. Obviously, the player of the year, the MVP, Rihanna Boynton, is back after injury. Well, not player of the year, but she was the tournament MVP last year. And then the defensive player of the year, Marlana White. You got Jayla Todd. You've got Micaiah Mims. You got Nicole Baldwin and Maria Crawley. Kimora Lance, they are stacked. They're young, but they have a stacked roster. Looking forward to seeing Hardaway taking on Murray County. All right. At 1 o'clock, we've got Butler taking on Morgan County. Butler is the defending 2A state champions, taking on a Morgan County team, which we saw in the Border Wars on Georgia Alabama Sports Live against Lee Scott and Calvary. I'm interested to see how Coach Jonathan Gordon thinks about Morgan County as they are in the state championship. And then we got the slam dunk final. That's going to be at 4:45. They take a little bit of a break on Saturday. The 6A girls, North Paulding taking on Grayson. And then the 6A boys, Wheeler, who is a powerhouse in 6A. Great NBA players like Isaiah Collier and Jalen Brown and Sharif Abdul-Rahim. Taking on Pebblebrook, which, interesting note, as I was listening to the interview with Matt Stewart earlier today, Colin Sexton ended up playing at Pebblebrook, and they've got some future NBA players as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. I know that Matt Stewart's going to be on the call for the boys' game. I'm not too sure who's going to be on the call for the girls' game, but whoever it is, we're going to be able to meet them on Saturday because that's where Thrift and I are going to be, at the Macon Coliseum. And I'm glad that I'm able to cover Hardaway as a member of the media. And it's going to be my first time at the Macon Coliseum. All right, let's switch gears from high school basketball to NFL free agency, and I don't think teams are quite done yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down all 32 teams. I'm going to kind of give you some tidbits on how I feel of each team. Obviously, the local team as well, the Atlanta Falcons, making some moves in free agency. My team, the San Francisco 49ers, I'll elaborate on them as well. We're going to start in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills. They re-signed Dawson Knox. I like this move. They really needed to get this done. But they also got DJ Moore, a wide receiver from the Chicago Bears, in a trade. How about the deal that the Miami Dolphins made? They got rid of Tua and that contract. I don't understand that one. But signed Malik Willis, which this is going to be a quarterback upgrade for the Miami Dolphins. New England Patriots, getting Elijah Vera Tucker, that's a huge move to help upgrade the offensive line. And getting Romeo Dobbs from the Green Bay Packers. What a great move. All right, the Jets getting Geno Smith back in New York Jets uniform. It's not lighting the world on fire, but it is an upgrade from their previous quarterback in Justin Fields. But they franchise tag Breece Hall. They get Demario Davis in free agency. I think he is a leader on the field, the longtime middle linebacker for the New Orleans Saints. And then they get Mika Fitzpatrick from the Miami Dolphins. I don't think the Jets are done yet. The AFC North, well, I thought the Baltimore Ravens were going to get Max Crosby, but they decided the last minute, he failed the physical. He's going back to Vegas. The Vegas Raiders were going to trade Max Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 first-rounders. I kind of like the move for both teams, but it's not working out. So not a whole lot on the free agent market. They did re-sign Tyler Huntley, but that is about it. Same with the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson will make his decision today on whether he is going to stay in Cincinnati or is he going to go somewhere else. They did get Byron Cook, the safety. The Cleveland Browns, they got Elgin Jenkins. He signed a 2-year, $24 million deal. And then Quincy Williams. The Steelers, how about this one? Getting Rico Dowell from the Dallas Cowboys and then getting Michael Pittman in a trade with the Indianapolis Colts. And then re-signing Asante Samuel, getting Jamal Dean over there from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, AFC South, the Houston Texans. Daniil Hunter, he signs a 1-year, $40 million deal. They re-signed a Dalton Schultz. David Montgomery comes over from the Detroit Lions. Now let's look Indianapolis Colts. Alec Pierce, he was the big wide receiver free agent target. Indianapolis re-signs him. A great deal for him to stay in Indianapolis. And Daniel Jones got franchise tagged. I know he got injured, but I think that the Colts believe that Daniel Jones could be that franchise quarterback. Let's take a look at Jacksonville. Not a whole lot of moves. DJ Dallas re-signs. They do get Quentin Morris to re-sign. Jacksonville didn't really do much in free agency. This is where the one team that really got the free agent splash was the Tennessee Titans. Getting Mitchell Trubisky, getting Morgan Cox re-signed, Jermaine Johnson. They've got Vondale Robinson. I think the big signing was Mitchell Trubisky, a backup that's going to be a backup to Cam Ward. I'm okay with this move just because Mitchell Trubisky has proven he can win playoff game or go to the playoffs. He took the Bears to the playoffs. I don't think he was a complete bust being a number 2 overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft. The Denver Broncos, Sam Ehlinger re-signs, J.K. Dobbins re-signs, and Justin Strawn re-signs. All right, this is where it gets interesting. This is where the Kansas City Chiefs getting Kenneth Walker III. Are you kidding me? They now have their featured running back. This is an upgrade from Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. By far, the Super Bowl MVP goes to Kansas City. I feel like the rich get richer. Tyquan Thornton resigns. Travis Kelce resigns. They did trade away Trent McDuffie, but they did get some draft picks for that. So that was a great move. The Raiders actually won the free agent year this year, getting Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker. They really like those Georgia running backs, don't they? Tyler Linderbaum, a massive 3-year, $81 million deal. He is going to just hold that offensive line together for years to come. Jalen Naylor. So now Fernando Mendoza, because I believe the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza. He now has a reliable slot receiver. Getting re-signing Eric Stokes. Taron Johnson with a trade with the Bills, a talented corner. Kwity Paye signing a deal with the Raiders. And who knows, Max Crosby could come back to the Raiders. Now the Raiders have a pretty decent team. A young tight end in Brock Bowers, up-and-coming running back in Alshon Ashton Genty. And, you also got Max Crosby. So why not? Hey, Max Crosby, come back. Anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers re-signing Khalil Mack, re-signing Dean Leonard, And also getting Cole Strange, and not a whole lot of moves there by the Chargers. All right, the Cowboys getting Javonte Williams re-signed, putting the franchise tag on George Pickens, getting Rashawn Gary in a trade with the Packers. They decided to go ahead and get Brandon Aubrey re-signed with a free agent franchise tender. Sam Williams re-signed. So pretty good moves there by the Cowboys. All right, the Giants getting Isaiah Likely. That was such a great move for Jackson Dart. I think the Giants are going to be the most improved team in the NFL. With John Harbaugh as their coach, you've got Jackson Dart in year 2. Isaiah Likely is going to be possibly a Pro Bowl tight end. There's no question about it. Tremaine Edmonds, he gets signed up. He gets picked up. I know that the big question is now that you got Abdul Carter over there, what to do with Kayvon Thibodeau. I still think the Giants have one of the best pass rushers in the league as far as a group of pass rushers. The Eagles, Jordan Davis re-signed. I mean, letting Nakobe Dean go, I mean, that was tough. I think the Eagles defense is going to take a step back, and they haven't really done much on the offense. I think they're banking on, well, they had Kevin Patullo, and their offensive coordinator has got to be an upgrade from last year, and who knows what's going to happen with A.J. Brown. I don't think the Eagles are done yet, but is A.J. Brown going to stay in Philly? Probably not. Washington Commanders re-signing Marcus Mariota, but nabbing Odafe Owe, a big-time edge rusher, and also getting Laramie Tunzel, a talented offensive lineman. And you got to think that Jalen Daniels is going to come back from that injury. I think the Washington Commanders will probably have a turnaround season. NFC North, the Bears just not done making moves. Devin Bush, the linebacker, Kobe Bryant comes over from Seattle, getting Case Keenum re-signed. Khalif Raymond, I think he is going to replace what DJ Moore was. Garrett Bradbury, they got him from a trade from the New England Patriots. I still think the Chicago Bears under Ben Johnson is not only going to be a playoff team, but they could be one of the top teams in the NFC. One team that I feel is kind of on the downward trend is the Detroit Lions, but they did pick up Isaiah Pacheco, and Juice Scruggs they got him in a trade from the Houston Texans. Packers haven't really made a whole lot of moves. Zaire Franklin comes over from the Colts, and then Benjamin St. Justy comes over and signing a 2-year, $10 million deal. The Vikings, there's still talks that Kyler Murray might go to the Vikings. I don't think they're done yet. They re-signed Eric Wilson, and they ended up signing James Pierre. The NFC South. All right, let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. Tua Tagovailoa is now a member of the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons signed him to a 1-year deal. The Atlanta Falcons getting that left-handed quarterback. He's going to be a bridge quarterback until Michael Penix Jr. comes back from his injury. I do like the wide receivers they have picked up. Jahan Dotson and Almade Zaccheaus. Now they've got depth at the receiver position with Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Jahan Dotson, and Almade Zaccheaus. And then welcome back Austin Hooper. Remember, Austin Hooper caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl for the Atlanta Falcons. He's going to be a great backup tight end to Kyle Pitts, who received the franchise tag. The Falcons are all in. Kevin Stefanski is saying, let's go. We have got a quarterback now who might be a little bit more accurate than Michael Penix Jr. that can at least win some games until Michael Penix Jr. comes back from that injury. Falcons are all in. They let Caden Ellis walk. James Pierce's legal problems, we don't know if he's going to come back. He might end up getting cut. I think the Falcons take a little bit of a hit on defense, but I think those weapons on offense look so scary, especially with Bijan Robinson. Even if Tyler Algier walks, and I think he does in free agency, he's going to sign somewhere. I think it's still a big win for the Atlanta Falcons getting Tua Tagovailoa. Carolina Panthers signing Kenny Pickett. David Moore re-signs. Julian Phillips, remember the Dolphins just decided just to get rid of him and the Eagles just picked him up in the middle of the season? Well, he's signed a 4-year, $120 million deal to play for the Carolina Panthers. And then they're also re-signing Isaiah Simmons. So, good moves by the Panthers, a team that made the playoffs last year, and Bryce Young looked better in his second season. All right, the New Orleans Saints getting Travis Etienne and Noah Fant. They are upgrading that offense and then also getting Caden Ellis over from the Atlanta Falcons and then John Ridgeway. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm hearing a mixed bag. There are some Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans that are very disappointed that Mike Evans did not re-sign with the team. But they did re-sign Cade Otton, and then they signed Kenneth Gainwell, one of those Philly running backs. Once Philly got Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Gainwell was just expendable. So he just walked. Miles Sanders was another one. You also had DeAndre Swift. I love it when, like, you get a running back, you get a big-time franchise running back, and so your running backs that really been your bell cow running backs don't mean anything, so you just let them walk. So hopefully Kenneth Gainwell can prove why he is worth being that featured back in Tampa. All right, finally, the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals are making moves. Obviously, Mike LaFleur is their coach. They know they're not going to have Kyler Murray. And by the way, as I see this, Tyler Algier did sign with the Arizona Cardinals. So, yeah, he has a new home. Can he be the featured running back in Arizona? How about Kendrick Bourne, who got to play for the 49ers last year and had success, but the 49ers can't afford him. So now he's going over to Arizona. You got L.J. Collier, who a pretty good defensive lineman. They're trying to make moves. Gardner Minshew, I don't think he's going to be the starter in Arizona. I think that he's going to end up being the backup. But the big question is Kyler Murray going to be the starter in Arizona? The Rams, the big move they got was Trent McDuffie. The Rams felt that they were a Super Bowl caliber team, but without elite corners. Trent McDuffie is that elite corner who made big plays in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. This is exactly what the Los Angeles Rams needed to try to get them to win a Super Bowl, because we don't know how long Matthew Stafford's got left. So I think this is a great move, re-signing Cam Curl. The Rams, still a Super Bowl contender. The San Francisco 49ers, the big move they had was signing Mike Evans. Now, as a 49ers fan, I'm not really a fan of signing the big-time Pro Bowl wide receiver because I think that his best years are behind him. I don't know if Mike Evans is going to still be that 1,000-yard receiving wide receiver with like 14 touchdowns. If he is, the 49ers are back to being a Super Bowl contender just for that alone, because they're getting rid of Brandon Ayuk, and now they're getting rid of Juwan Jennings. But having Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle when he comes back from that Achilles injury, and Christian McCaffrey, I still worry about that offensive line. Still don't know what's going to happen with Trent Williams if the 49ers are going to re-sign him. But getting Nick Bosa, Mykel Williams, and Fred Warner back from injury, their defense is already an upgrade, and I love Raheem Morris as the defensive coordinator. Re-signing Eddie Pinheiro, huge deal. But remember, he made all those clutch field goals last year. And then Vidarian Lowe, he is going to be probably could be that left tackle that replaces Trent Williams. And finally, the defending Super Bowl champions, they let Kenneth Walker walk, no pun intended, but they did re-sign Rashid Shaheed, who was he was a nightmare on special teams, especially for my 49ers with that kickoff return to start the game, and I'll never forget that. And then Joshua Jobe re-signs on a 3-year deal. Why don't we do this? Let's take a break. When we come back, it's bracketology time. Who is going to be on the bubble and who is getting in this tournament? You don't want to go anywhere. And World Baseball Classic upset. Going to talk about it all here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. We'll be right back after this. One. Welcome back to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. It's college basketball time. I cannot believe Selection Sunday is this Sunday, as we have got Bracketology. We've got the first round of the SEC tournament up in Nashville starting at 12:30. We got LSU, Kentucky. We've got Mississippi State and Auburn, Ole Miss and Texas, and then South Carolina and Oklahoma. And so when we look at the landscape of college basketball, some of the local teams to Georgia, I know that it's feast or famine when it comes to Georgia schools in the NCAA tournament. We know more than likely Georgia's getting in. This would be the second year in a row, and they have not gotten out of the first round since 2002. So I would love to see Georgia get a high seed, maybe a 7th seed. They got to do something in this SEC tournament if they want to try to get maybe a 7th seed. But I think they're projected to be either a 9 or a 10. Auburn is one of the first teams out, and I would not be shocked if they make it to the NIT. But I got a question for you, Auburn fans. If you end up winning the NIT under Steve Pearl in his first year, is that worthy to not only hang an NIT banner at Neville Arena, but for your fans to roll Toomer's Corner? I'm just making a joke there. But Auburn can still get into this tournament. They got to beat Mississippi State today. All right, so according to Joe Lunardi, ESPN.com, the top overall seed is Duke. The last team in is Indiana. The first team out is Auburn. Those two teams flip-flop because last week Auburn was the last team in. So it is very close, and Auburn has to beat Mississippi State today. I'm interested to see what Indiana does to try to get into this tournament. Let's take a look at the projected number 1 seeds. We know that Duke is the overall number 1 seed. You know, they got the Boozer twins. They look fantastic. Michigan is another number 1 overall seed, the defending NCAA champion. Florida is also a number 1 overall seed, and Arizona out of the Big 12. Those are 4 great number 1 seeds. Let's take a look at the number 2 seeds. Houston, Illinois, Michigan State, and UConn. Not too shabby there. The number 3 seeds, according to Joe Lunardi, Alabama, Iowa State, and we also have Nebraska, who's having a fantastic year, and then Gonzaga, who just won the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga's been in the NCAA tournament since 1999. Back when they had Dan Monson as the coach, now Mark Few, who's considered one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. I remember that 99 team that went all the way to the Elite Eight, upset Stanford, and Gonzaga has never won a championship. They have always been known as a mid-major, but since they're getting ready to go into the Pac-12, you could take that mid-major label off them. And so Gonzaga has a 3 seed. All right, the 4 seeds, Kansas, Texas Tech, both in the Big 12, Purdue, and Virginia. All right, every week I add another seed because this is the last bracketology show we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and go through the entire bracket. All right, we've got the number 5 seeds, according to Joe Lunardi, Vanderbilt. We've got Tennessee, St. John's, and Arkansas. How about that? We got Rick Pitino and John Calipari, who's projected to be 5 seeds. All right, the 6th seeds, come on. Louisville, BYU, where, BYU had a great game by A.J. Bastanza with 20 points as they beat K-State. And I think that BYU could be a very scary team when it comes to March Madness because of Bastanza. All right, North Carolina, one of their top players is out, but and then Wisconsin. Those are your number 6 seeds according to Joe Lunardi. The number 7 seeds, Villanova. How about Georgia? Georgia is listed as a number 7 seed. I think if they want to stay a 7th seed, I think that they got to win a couple of games in the SEC tournament. I mean, but they're right at that threshold where Georgia is definitely going to be a lock to be in this. Even if they lose in the first round in the SEC tournament, I believe Georgia is going to be in this tournament. And they're trying to get out of the first round for the first time in over 25 years. It has been a long time since Georgia has been into the second round. So you got those number 7 seeds on that bracket. St. Mary's out of the West Coast Conference, and Kentucky, which Kentucky's had a down year this year, but they would still be considered a number 7 seed. The number 8 seeds, Miami, UCLA, and we have Utah State and Ohio State. The number 9 seeds, Iowa, Clemson, TCU, and Texas A&M. Now, here are the number 10 seeds. These are the teams that are considered the last 4 byes in this tournament. Texas, St. Louis, Santa Clara, who just lost to Gonzaga in the WCC final, and then NC State. All right, let's go into the 11 seeds. Remember, there's been an 11 seed twice that made the Final Four, LSU and then also George Mason. So fun fact. I like doing tournament facts, and in fact, I'm on next week's show as we preview the brackets for March Madness. I'm going to talk about like all those times that a 15 beat a 2 and a 14 beat a 3, because obviously we got some local teams that have done that here in Georgia, including Georgia State beating Baylor and then Mercer beating Duke. So, yeah, I'm going to reminisce about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. 11 seeds. We do have UCF and Indiana, and these would be considered in one of the play-in games. SMU and VCU would be the other play-in games. The 12 seeds, South Florida and Yale. And actually, no, we got Missouri and Miami of Ohio, both 11 seeds. So Miami of Ohio is undefeated. If they lose in the MAC tournament, which I got to check and see how they're doing, can they still get into this tournament? Would they be out? Would they burst somebody's bubble? I don't know. That's hard to tell. All right, back to the 12 seeds, South Florida, Yale. Remember, this is according to Joe Lenardi. This is not my bracket. This is Joe Lenardi's bracket. I'm just sharing it with everybody. High Point, Northern Iowa. You know, for somebody that watches college basketball in November, I still can't figure out this bracket, and it always gets busted after that first day. All right, so we got the 12 seeds, 13 seeds, Liberty, Stephen F. Austin, Hofstra, and Utah Valley. All right, the number 14 seeds. How about Troy? They're listed as a number 14 seed, and if the bracket holds up, they would play Alabama in the first round. That would be a massive game. Troy ended up winning the Sun Belt. They were able to withstand Georgia Southern, who was a 10 seed that went on that incredible run. But the Troy Trojans are in the tournament as a 14 seed. North Dakota State, also a 14 seed. Wright State and UC Irvine. Now let's look at the 15 seeds. Furman, Tennessee State, UMBC, and Queens. Remember, Columbus State ended up losing to Queens in the first round of the NCAA Division II tournament about 3 years ago. Queens is now a D1 school. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we also have, so those are the 15 seeds. And then now the 16 seeds. Howard and Eastern Washington would be in a play-in game. Long Island is also a 16 seed. We also have Lehigh and Siena. And then we have Bethune-Cookman, who would end up playing Lehigh in the play-in game. So that is your bracketology. And we've got conference tournament play coming up all the way up until Sunday, until Selection Sunday. It's going to be a fun time. One quick thing before I get out of here. Well, why don't we do this? Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about this World Baseball Classic. It is the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we'll be right back after this. Once again, it's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and I am your host, Richard Holdridge. It's time to talk World Baseball Classic. I love this tournament when the United States wins, but they had a huge upset last night against Italy. I was completely shocked. I was watching this game. Italy jumped out to an 8-0 lead, and then I don't know what happened, but the United States tried to come back into it, and it was too little too late. They end up losing the game 8-6. And so now the United States, who was one of the favorites to win the World Baseball Classic, is in jeopardy of not getting out of the pool play and getting to the tournament bracket, because later today Mexico takes on Italy. If Mexico beats Italy by more than 5 runs, the United States is going to be sitting at home. Well, their players are going back to spring training. That's basically what's happening. But they're out. And that's hard to believe because they are one of the favorites. Now, I love the World Baseball Classic. I really do. It's one of my favorite tournaments. And one of the reasons why is because I kind of felt like when it was the sport of baseball was taken out of the Olympics, it just had a bad taste in its mouth. But here's what we know as I'm trying to pull the schedules. As we had Canada beat Puerto Rico, Israel beat the Netherlands, Japan beat Czechia, which Czechia now got relegated, so they're going to have to go into the World Baseball Classic qualifiers for the next World Baseball Classic, which I believe is in 2030, might be in 2029, but sometimes they have it every 3 years, sometimes they have it every 2 years, every 4 years. So I don't know. But we've got classic pool play later today. Canada taking on Cuba. Italy and Mexico, that's going to be at 7 o'clock tonight on Tubi. The Dominican Republic is taking on Venezuela. There is going to be an opportunity here. So right now, because Italy's 3-0, United States is 3-1, Mexico is 2-1. It makes you wonder about those games between Great Britain and Brazil. Why couldn't the United States tack on more runs? Because now they're in danger of missing out in advancing out of Pool B. In Pool A, it looks like Puerto Rico is advanced, but Canada and Cuba, the winner of this game, is going to advance out of Pool A. Pool C, Tokyo, or Japan, Pool C's in Tokyo. Japan's already advanced. They're 4-0. Korea is advanced, and Venezuela and the Dominican Republic ended up advancing out of Pool D, which both teams are 3-0. This is going to be a pretty fun game as they try to see who's going to end up winning Pool D and who's going to be the runner-up. But at least they still get to advance. So what's going to happen is the runner-up of Pool D plays the winner of Pool C, and the same vice versa. The runner-up in Pool A will play the winner of Pool B. And so is there a possibility? I don't think the United States can win Pool B even if Mexico beats Italy. I think I got to look at the tiebreakers to see exactly. So the tiebreaker is the team that won the games between the teams tied shall be given the higher position. If 3 or more teams are tied and one of those teams won its games against all other teams is tied with, then it will be placed in the higher spot. It sounds pretty simple, right? Well, that is the World Baseball Classic. Other final notes, Columbus State Cougars and Lady Cougars in the NCAA tournament this week, as the CSU Lady Cougars are the fourth seed. They're taking on Carson Newman. And then we've got the Cougars, who are the 6th seed. They're taking on Catawamba. I would like to follow them and just see how they do. The Cleanstones, they are less than a month away. I was at Synovus Park last week. Got to be on the call for the Border Wars Championship along with Dave Plata on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. It was great to be at the ballpark. It brought back memories when I was calling the Columbus Chattahoots back in 2023. The opener is going to be April the 3rd against the Chattanooga Lookouts. I'm excited about this, and I'm excited that I'm back doing this show. Now, there's been some speculation. There's been some talks about possibly bringing the guests back in time. I still got to figure some things out. I've got some things that I'm taking care of, but that could be on the horizon. Thank you for watching the show. Make sure that you follow me on the socials. I am out. I'll see you next time. We'll probably see you next week, and we'll see how this goes. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.